Hey guys, what's happening? It's Jay. I'm hanging out in the hooch today, and let's talk. I wanted to talk about a couple of the Professional Citizen Project books. The Citizen Manual number 2 on reconnaissance, and Citizen Manual number 9 on surviving adverse conditions and environments. Both books have a section in them on leadership, and the CM2 has their leadership section really focuses on the small unit military aspect of it, and which is extremely important to recognize. And then in the adverse conditions and environments book, the leadership portion of it really kind of goes, it covers it on a bit of a broader scale on things to maybe look for if you're not familiar with leadership out in the field, and trip planning, getting groups together, getting guys together, things like that. So I kind of wanted to just briefly read you a few things out of it on leadership, just to kind of give you a little bit of a better understanding of it, and where I come from with it as far as my background from a mountaineering, climbing, backpacking background. But really, to me, and I had found this quote which I liked: leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration motivated by passion, generated by vision, produced by a conviction, ignited by a purpose. It's by Miles Monroe. I think that kind of says it all there. That's what we're all looking for in a leader, right? Somebody who can lead, somebody who can inspire, somebody who can motivate, somebody who is passionate about what they do, somebody who has a deep conviction about what you're doing. I think those are all incredibly important things. And I think when you look at different groups and you look at their leadership structure, I think if you follow that quote and you pay attention to those things, I think it can really say a lot about the character of that specific leadership. So every group, regardless of its size or nature, needs not just a leader, but good leadership, right? There's a difference between just having a leader and having a good leader. I think most of us can, whether you grew up playing sports or maybe you were in scouts or you're in the military, you know the difference between just a regular leader and a good leader. You really, really do. It's, I have here, it's one thing to go out on a field exercise with a group of well-seasoned friends, but it's a whole other thing to bring a group of people together that you don't know to a place that you are not familiar with, and to still be able to get the job done, right? So there's a couple different kinds of leaders, and I want to kind of highlight those because I think these are important to understand. Regardless if it's a small group or a big group, I think it's important to understand the different kinds of leaders to look for, and maybe to be able to ask yourself, what kind of leader are you? So the different categories: you have a peer leader, right? So your peer leader, this is probably the most common amongst groups of friends, right? You decide to go to the woods for a weekend. I know we do this all the time. It starts with the text message saying, hey guys, let's go to XYZ for this week and let's do this, this, and this. So the members of this group tend to informally decide who does what concerning food, equipment, transportation activities, so on and so forth. In today's world, a lot of this is done just via text messages. And that's all I know. I myself, I have the bush camp that we utilize a lot, and it always starts off with a text message saying, hey guys, let's go camping this weekend. And then it goes into, all right, who wants to take care of lunch, dinner, breakfast? Who's bringing this? What are we going to do? Things like that. What time are we getting there? What time are we leaving? All that kind of stuff. It's done very informally. So it's so even in this group, one person will tend to rise above the rest just through general consensus. It's not like there's a vote taken or somebody's like, well, I'm the leader for this weekend. It's just that somebody just ends up just naturally becoming that person. Usually it's the person who really starts the conversation a lot of times. So it's probably the leadership that I relate to a lot, just because of having a close-knit group of friends who we would do all these things in the field. That peer leadership resonates strongly with me. Another type of leader is the group champion, all right? This is the guy that champions the outing, the one with the original idea and invites everybody else. So kind of like the peer leader. They're never officially named a leader. They're just the one that everyone recognizes as the one in charge. Okay, once again, it's kind of an unspoken thing. Another type of leader is the most experienced leader. This tends to be common in the climbing world or mountaineering world, where it's your person with the most experience. That person is deemed the leader by everyone else in the group. We've done that a lot. Like you go on mountaineering trips to big glaciated peaks, Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, or mountaineering or backcountry ski trips up in the Adirondacks or New Hampshire's White Mountains. Your guy who has the most experience in those activities and in those conditions and in that area, he's going to be the leader of the group, plain and simple. He's the most experienced. Then you have a course or a school leader, okay? I have a bit of a background in this too, where this would be the case where when you sign up for a course or a class, like let's say it's a basic mountaineering course or a basic glacier course, or a climbing trip or any other outdoor skill course. The leader here is usually the one who is accredited by a formal organization. So let's say like the American Mountain Guiding Association, or the International Mountain Guiding Association, or maybe it's somebody who has all the training through NOLS, through their Wilderness First Responder course, or things like that. They have a certain level of experience, knowledge, and competence that really makes them the overall leader of that group. So then you have other types of leadership roles. Like you have the person who's the teacher. You find this a lot in like scouting is a great way to look at this. When you have less experienced folks along with you, it's important to seize on those teachable moments to make sure that everyone is on the same page with what is happening or what's going on. Usually it's nothing more than giving advice or demonstrating a skill in the middle of doing a task. When safety is concerned, you may end up taking the time to have a classroom session on it, just to make sure that everyone is sure of how certain things work. I'm a fan of the EDGE method. For those of you not familiar with the EDGE method, it's E is for explain, D is for demonstrate, G is for guide, E is for enable. It's 4 simple steps when teaching a new skill to somebody that you can do with them. That is it's a proven technique for learning skills, specifically outdoor skills. This is also referred to as servant leadership. I think Grunt Proof and Modern Frontiersman hit upon this over the last couple of days about leadership and how you have certain leaders that tend to be very self-serving, which is the exact opposite of what you really want, which is more that servant leadership, that leader who is giving themselves to you. They are doing it for the better of the group. It's hard. It's not easy. But if you have that kind of mindset and that is what your conviction is, you can convey that to other people. It can be incredibly rewarding and fulfilling to be that type of a leader. You have a trip planner. This is an important one as far as there's so many moving pieces when planning a trip. This is where logistics really comes into play. So if you have your guy who is just super duper logistics guy, chances are he's going to be your trip planner. Subject expert. This goes back to that like course or school leader. This is your guy who has, he has training, he has experience, he has good judgment for what's required. And you don't have to be the best at what you do, but you just have to have the best sense about you. So that you guys know, for anyone who spends enough time in the outdoors or out in the field, you know what this gets about having just that best sense about you. You might just be the go-to person for advice on gear, navigation, first aid, weather, and much more. That's important. You have that coach or mentor type of leader. We've all been in that case where you need help with something. You're in a difficult spot. You're encouraged when facing a difficult task. This type of leader helps folks overcome difficulties by adding encouragement and support to their base of knowledge. So you're not talking down to that person who needs your help, but you're encouraging them. That's huge. Encouragement. That's all that PMA, positive mental attitude. Always always taking the positive approach and not the negative approach. So you don't want that. And then that helps instill confidence in the person as well. And then there's two more. Your guardian angel. This is a difficult one, and I've been this person where you're on a climbing trip or mountaineering trip, and I'll tell you a story. I was guiding a group of people in Colorado. The whole goal of the trip was to climb 14,000 foot peaks the whole week, and we were climbing Quandary Peak, which is a relatively class 2 scramble up to the summit. And weather was moving in, and the group got pretty spread out. Like I could pretty much see everybody for a fairly good distance, and you could see weather moving in. Like the temperature started dropping, clouds started whipping up, and you just knew that, conditions were going to deteriorate while we were still heading up the mountain. We were well above tree line, maybe only an hour and a half from the summit, but I turned everybody around below the summit to get back down. And literally, and folks were not happy about it at all. There were some people who were a little bit upset because that ended up being the one peak for that whole week that we did not successfully summit. But by the time we got back down to the trailhead, it was full-blown winter conditions, and this was in the middle of summer. So, what a sucky spot to have been in if you were up on the summit as that weather hit you. But I knew that, hey, I'd rather disappoint people and turn them around now than all of a sudden have to get into a situation where you're having to put together rescues. You do not want that. So I was willing to be the bad guy with that. And I think folks, after the fact, folks understood why I had to do that. But it had to be done. Last one would be an arbitrator. In many group outings, you'll have times where you have differences with each other. You're not willing to listen to each other. Johnny is like, no, we should take this route. Pete is like, no. That's a horrible idea. We should take this route. And before you know it, they all start arguing with each other. Tempers flare. You've been out for a week, 10 days. So, everybody stinks. You're dirty. You haven't been sleeping good. You're running low on fuel, rations, all that kind of stuff. So everybody starts fighting with each other. So that arbitrator is that person who kind of puts their foot down and puts an end to it. I think that's another hard one to be, because once again, you kind of have to be the bad guy a little bit. And I mean, nobody ever wants to be the bad guy, but sometimes it has to be done to save the trip, or in a Minuteman or military aspect, as the person who can save the mission and make it successful. So we're all going to develop different styles of leadership, and usually it's going to be taking a little bit from this style, and you're going to develop your own style that's going to be a blend of all of those. So I think that's incredibly important. When we're talking leadership, it makes a big difference. And strive to be that servant leader, that person who gives of themselves for the betterment of others. I think we need a lot more of that. And I think that'll help with, what they say, a rising tide lifts all ships. Be that person who helps lift all the ships, who helps everyone out. So anyways, I just wanted to point those out because people have been talking about it lately. And, the Professional Citizen Project has a couple of books that highlights leadership. And I think that is a important topic for discussion. So anyways, that's all I got, guys. Keep getting out there, keep training, be good. Keep getting your buddies together and keep putting yourself out there. So anyways, that's all I got. Later.